Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is my first week of my mini-series that I am doing, week 1, episode 3. For those who have been, sorry, my cat is here. For those who have been here all week, welcome back. This week I have been talking about coping skills that we can use every day. I'd like it to be interactive. I don't want to just talk at you. The first night, Monday, I talked about using music as prayer. I really tie everything into prayer, but just music as a coping skill is what we talked about on Monday. Last night, Tuesday, we talked about journaling, but also taking journaling a step further and just kind of the thought of just like writing anything down, like just getting your thoughts out, whether it's on paper or, sorry, my cat is being a menace, so he'll do the live with us. Not necessarily just journaling in terms of writing, but like you can journal using a voice recorder, just getting your thoughts out in some way to help you, so that they're not sitting in your brain. So today, the third biggest coping skill that I feel I personally use and or have heard from my patients and clients that works the best for them is, I'm going to kind of combine two, which would be fresh air and moving. Obviously, going to the gym or working out at home, you can be inside. My biggest struggle personally in upstate New York where it's cold is the fresh air piece. And I think that we don't realize how much of a factor that has to do with people who have like seasonal affective disorder and stuff. I think a big part of it, yes, is like the sunlight itself, but also fresh air has very many medical and health properties. So even though it's freezing cold sometimes in certain places, even if you can bundle up enough to just get outside for 5 minutes, or if you're doing your exercises inside and you can't even go outside for a walk because it's too cold, because I completely understand that. Even though our brains are like heat and electric bill, I still will sometimes just, oh my God, I'm sorry guys, my cat's being very frustrating right now. Sometimes I'll crack open a window, even just a tiny bit, just to like let some fresh air in. I'm somebody who gets headaches, so it's not just for the emotional piece, but physically, our health is definitely better with some fresh air. I had a couple of different times where my head was pounding so hard, and I was drinking water and trying to eat enough protein and doing all the things, resting and being in the dark and turning off loud music and getting away from screens, taking medication, whatever. And honestly, what ended up helping me was just like going outside for a little while and getting fresh air. Sounds simple, but it truly does work sometimes. So exercise, movement. The other thing that I actually told a couple of my clients who were having difficulty with just like finding a time that like, you say you're going to go for a walk, you say you're going to go exercise, whatever, you being me too, like I do this all the time. I have to be very, very strict with myself. Honestly, sometimes I'll ask my daughter to like do a workout with me just to make sure that I'm going to do it. But what I was saying was I oftentimes, in order to exercise, I've suggested to clients if they have a hard time making a time to do this, like, okay, well, maybe that could be your time to go, like, call your friend that you haven't talked to in a while. I really apologize. My cat is just being, like, out of control right now. while I'm trying to do this. If you say you're going to go for a walk outside or on the treadmill or whatever it is, walking fast enough, moderately enough to get exercise, but you could call a friend that you haven't talked to in a while, and that way you're also doing something, so you're like distracting yourself. It doesn't seem as much like exercise if you are talking to someone else or doing it with someone else. I also use it honestly as sometimes almost like a time of prayer. So if I'm at the gym, and again, this is me, I don't know how everyone is with like reading while they're moving, but if I'm walking on the treadmill, sometimes I don't even put my my AirPods in. I read on my phone or read a book, and that will be like my time to do like my morning reflections or read a book that's having to do with like self-care, self-growth, or listening to a podcast. So that's some of the things that kind of like I combine a lot of things together. So when you're using it as a coping skill, like I said about the other things that we talked about the last 2 days, you have to be able to have coping skills that like in the moment you can use. So if you're in the moment at work and you're feeling frustrated with something, you get bad news or something happens and you feel like you're gonna blow, can you take 5 minutes and just take like a super brisk walk, whether it's like around the office building or around the building outside or something, just to get your body moving, get some fresh air like in that moment. Are you in the type of office where you can crack a window? I know sometimes I'm a nurse, so sometimes in the hospital it can be difficult, but we do have on one of the units, I think only one of the units that I work on, it's like this little tiny nurse's station, and it's just super stuffy. The hospital itself is like has the worst airflow ever, and I feel like I automatically get like headache and stuffy, and obviously that's a stressful job. We always crack a window, even if it's freezing outside. Like we have that window cracked open. We'll like run a heater in the room if we need to, but it's super helpful. I think people don't realize how much like your endorphins actually are going with the fresh air and the moving around, and so when you're using that as a coping skill, it can automatically like bring this like calm and peace to you. Deep breathe with it. I know sometimes deep breathing by itself doesn't help. I don't feel like that necessarily helps me. Sometimes I almost feel like it just makes me like more anxious. I feel like I have to couple personally deep breathing with something else. So if I'm deep breathing like while I'm taking like a fresh air break, or while I'm listening to calming music, that's more of my, that's what I do. But again, this is something like super helpful to know ahead of time before you're in a situation that you need these coping skills. Think about making a list of things that have worked for you in the past, and then kind of keep those in mind depending on what situation you're in. Maybe have a list of like 5 to 6 different things that might work for you, and then that way you can kind of like see which ones will work in which situations, or depending on which environment you're in or who you're around. So that's all I have to say. I'm just doing these little mini short series of episodes about coping skills each day. I'll do another one Thursday and Friday, and then I'm going to be doing a new topic next week that does like, it all goes together. So we start with coping skills, and then the next thing will be removing negativity, actually, is going to be next week. So since my cat's getting more annoying by the second, does anybody have any other suggestions? Or like, I have 2 set things I'm going to talk about the next 2 days in terms of different types of coping skills. But But if you guys have other suggestions that you maybe want me to talk about, or I can add on and we can kind of discuss it together. But I do like it to be interactive because that's why I'm here. I'm here because these are things that work for me, or that I've heard from patients and clients that work for them. And sometimes I think that talking about this stuff almost seems like it's like too simple or something. Like, I don't think that we realize sometimes like how difficult it can be to pull out these coping skills. Sometimes we do it so automatically that we don't necessarily put it out there and talk about it. But it's super important. So anyways, all right, well, I hope to see you guys tomorrow around the same time. Usually it's close. I say 6:30. It's really closer to like 6:45 Eastern. All of these can, yeah. So I mean, with trauma, there's obviously a different, like, there's going to be more steps, if you will. There's going to be, with like any type of really true like trauma therapy or like EMDR, obviously there's different styles. For an actual trauma, you're going to use these coping skills, but you're also going to be digging a little bit deeper with other things as well. So in the moment, a lot of the coping skills that we are able to use are just kind of, like, I look at it as like, okay, so I'm a nurse in the crisis unit. So I look at it as, in the moment, like the person comes into crisis, like it's like a triage, like what are you doing right then and there? So in the moment of your sadness, your anger, whatever the feeling is that you're feeling, what can you do to like get to the next minute? That sometimes is how you have to think, is little tiny baby steps. Like, how can I get to the next minute? How can I get to the next hour? How can I get to the next day? If getting to the next minute is listening to a song, and then getting to the next hour is writing down like an angry 3-page journal entry because you just need to get it out of your brain instead of like emailing somebody or texting somebody. That's the other thing, is like using these coping skills can be to kind of distract yourself from doing something that's not going to be good in the end. Instead of picking up your phone and sending somebody an angry text, pick up a pen or paper, whatever, or I mean your phone, and like instead put it into like a Word document, put it into a journal, put it somewhere else. Instead of screaming at your boss or flipping out about something at work that's going to end up making you look like an idiot or lose your job or get you in trouble, go outside and like run around the block real quick, walk around the block, go sit in your car and like scream for a second. Like, so this is like this in the moment coping skill. And then on a bigger scale, what I do with like my clients and stuff, like in an actual program, what you would do is like take that little tiny in the moment coping skill, and then how can you kind of expand that and make it something that you do as like a process. It's harder for me to do some of this stuff like with patients in the hospital, obviously, because you only have X amount of time that they're there or whatever, and you're really more looking at like the little tiny, right now I'm in a crisis situation, what can I do just to get through this hospitalization? But that's why why I created my own like program with like a whole process of how to go through stuff at like a longer, whatever, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month thing, where you can start with one situation, but you're also learning how to take something and use it for your whole life, depending, like, or not depending, like, no matter what type of situation you go through in the future, you're able to still use that same process of getting through it. And I basically just took combination of like the nursing process and my personal process that I've used with stuff that I've gotten through myself, and just put it basically into writing and formed a program. So that's kind of what I'm basing all of my learning off of, or all of my teaching off of when I come on here. But I have rambled enough at this point, I think, tonight. Thank you guys for coming to my night 3, and I hope you guys have a great night. As I said last night, if you want to chat, I'm always available on DM. You know, I respond pretty quickly usually. If you don't follow me already, please follow me. I don't know if I posted it yesterday or today, but I'll put a link also in case you want to subscribe to my email like contact list. That way you can, I mean, right now I'm just telling you each night that I'm coming on live at 6:30, but in the future, like if I'm doing like a live webinar or a live program or launching something, sometimes I ask people to like try things or do things or join even just for like testimonials, so you can be on lists in order to do that. If you already did give me your email, I did send out a thank you for subscribing email last night. So if you didn't get that, it might be in your spam. So just make sure to check that. But thank you guys, and I hope you have a great night. God bless.